Welcome to today's edition of the Rush Limbaugh Show podcast.
Well, great to see you, people of Earth. It's great to be on the Rush Limbaugh Show today for so many reasons. First of all, it's always bittersweet because Rush it's treatment week, and he's in great spirits. He's energized, and he'll be back before you know it. The number's 800-282-2882. The reason I'm so thrilled to be on the Rush Limbaugh Show, as always, but we're in the middle of a coup, and I think it's obvious that the news media has sold out the American people. I'll be playing some sound bites, and you'll hear some of the idiocy coming up on that. But more importantly, I had to tell you, the vote just changed again. Right now, 72.3 million people so far have voted for Donald Trump. I have never been more proud to say I voted for Donald J. Trump, and I'm part of that little group that everybody mocks and kicks around and calls names and rolls their eyes at. 72.3 million of us. Now, here's the theme of today's show, and I discussed this with the whole team, Allie and Mike and Craig, everybody. We discussed it. What we want to do today is get a state of your state. We need an update. And it was critical that all the words rhymed. It had to do, just state of the update, state of the state, whatever. Because we can no longer trust the news media. And if you question anything that they say, if you have a question about COVID or climate change or voter, I'm going to say the F word. I can't believe I'm saying it on the EIB network. I'm going to say the F word right now because it's been banned from all the news networks. Fraud. Voter fraud. Here's the big breaking news this morning. And this is why I want you to call into the show today, because we need to find out, in particular with the battleground states. And you know who you are, you bunch of troublemakers like me in central Pennsylvania. You should see the cluster that's going on here in Harrisburg, PA. Oh, my God, don't even get me started. 800-282-2882. Call into the EIB network. Give me an update, how things are on the ground, what the pulse is. But so many things have changed just since I walked into the bunker studio today. Analysis of election night data from all states shows millions of votes were either switched from President Donald J. Trump to Biden or lost using Dominion and other vote count systems. Now, you hear a lot of gibberish in the media, like voter fraud doesn't exist, irregularities don't exist, nobody's trying to steal the vote. Please don't believe them. You have to stop this. The only reason we are this far in this now what has become a fractured voting process, we're in the middle of a third world voting process because in many states, these Dominion machines, just like the Diebold machine of 2001 that patriots and conservatives tried to reform, and that was shut down, you don't know what's going in and you don't know what's coming out. And I took copious notes on this because I don't want to get in the weeds because I'm not a computer geek. I mean, the most savvy tech guy on the EIB network is Rush. But I'm going to attempt to share some of this with you because all week long on my show in Pennsylvania, I heard it on Todd's show, people are calling in and they're saying, what can we do? How do we help? And I have one of the most effective lists to share with you. The most important thing I want to start the show with today is make it clear to you that your state, according to the Constitution, has the power and the final authority on this election. It's not Jeffrey Toobin. I just wanted to say his name. I'm sorry. That was uncalled for. Because you know what? A lot of news people do that all day long on the air, figuratively speaking, if you watch news. I'm sorry. So, what's his name, Don Leming on CNN or on MSNBC, The Morning Joke, they do not have any power with vote counting, with auditing the votes, with recounts, with projected anything. The Constitution of the United States gives all the power to you. And since there's 72.3 million of us that voted for President Donald J. Trump, and probably 72 million are listening, I think it's imperative we start calling our state legislature the different legislators in our legislature and our assembly and make it clear that they are not to verify this count because it's against the law. The Constitution says they're the final authority, but the Constitution also says when an election is in doubt, it falls to the state legislatures in these various states, whether it's Wisconsin or pick one of the states that's in play right now. One of the states that MSNBC and CNN are ignoring. What problem? I don't see any problem. What do you mean millions of votes were switched from President Trump to Biden? How would they do that? It's not like we put a man on the moon. I was talking to Allie before the show, and I said, I used to watch American Idol all the time back in the day, and American Idol can count all the votes within an hour and put them on the screen. And I'm still waiting to find out Lehigh Valley, Pennsylvania, or Lebanon County, Pennsylvania. It's crazy. Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Georgia, Nevada, Arizona, all in play. That kicks in the electors clause from Article 2 of the Constitution that says state legislatures, not courts, are the final authority to settle election disputes for the presidency. Now, this is very upsetting to Chris Wallace because Chris Wallace believes he's the final authority on everything. I'm sorry. Not really. The Constitution empowers state legislatures to do this in two ways. Each state shall appoint in such manner as the legislature therefore may direct a number of electors. Here's what has to happen. This is the appeal I are making to you as great Americans and fellow voters and incredible Rush Limbaugh show listeners. You must contact your state politicians, your state assembly, and you must say, you better not certify a stolen election, or we will do everything in our power legally and peacefully to destroy your career. Now, the reason I put it that way, you know that probably 60% of most people in politics are manipulative, narcissist, lying hacks. So you want to appeal that way. I mean, it's not going to appeal to them if you say our nation's at a crossroads. What we do now is going to set the stage for generations. These people don't care about generations. They're cranking cash. You think Mitt Romney and Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi care about the next generation? Nancy's worried about losing her gavel or her teeth, which she keeps in the same drawer. So we want you to call in today with updates, but more importantly, start right now. Immediate audits of computer systems. You call up your state senator. You call up your state rep. All these people that talk trash all year. I'm a conservative. Yeah, I back up Trump. And then as soon as they get elected on President Donald Trump's coattails, which is kind of ironic. Wait till you hear the story in Michigan, because the way they're cheating in Michigan, the way they stole it in Michigan is just, oh my gosh, it's brilliant. It has to do with algorithms and presets and all this stuff. And wait till you hear how many states had the computer people show up the eve of the election. It was kind of odd. Hey, I just got to check under the hood for a second here. What are you doing with that little switch there? Witnesses. Witnesses coming out of the woodwork. Something must have clicked over the weekend. Maybe some of the 72.3 million people that voted for Donald J. Trump, or the 15 or maybe 25 Democrats that are actually informed in the country, maybe they said, you know what? I think this election is being stolen. Why would you say that? Because Fox News said Biden would win by 12 in Pennsylvania, and he's now 0.10. He's 1/10 of a point ahead. And there are now more illegal ballots in Pennsylvania than Joe Biden's lead. So you call up your assembly in the states. You call them up, say, hey, how you doing? I pay your salary. I need you to listen to me and get back to me. See, we are the boss. This is what we forgot. This is what the news media and Barack Obama and leftist knuckleheads have preached for decades. They run us. We, the people. We pay their salaries. They are our employees. You need to call your employees in Arizona, Nevada, Georgia, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, and 3 other states now are on the radar, but I haven't got them confirmed. You need to call them up and say, look, here's what I want you to do, State Rep so-and-so, or you'll never get another dime from me, and I will just never support you again. We need immediate audits of computer systems and election counting. We need forensic audits, and it has to be by the state legislature. Don't let some Jim Comey wannabe come in and say, don't worry, the FBI's here. You can trust us. No, we can't. No, we can't. You've proven that, Jim Comey. You've put such a stain on the FBI that when the FBI and the Pentagon show up to, bring clarity or justice to a situation between you and John Brennan, that leftist communist hack, you've shamed this country. You've made this country really take a step back. And what we fall back on in America is the people. And that's who I trust. Coming up, what politicians own the Dominion and ECS and other computer systems that are stealing votes from President Trump and putting them in the Biden column. That's all coming up next on the Rush Limbaugh Show. This is the Rush Limbaugh Show. My name is Ken Matthews. I want to thank you for tuning in today. And if you're one of the 72.3 million people that voted for President Donald J. Trump and reelected him, I am so proud to be a part of your little group of 72.3 million people. And thrilled to be talking to the Rush audience. That's 72 that's the count as of an hour ago. It's growing. It's growing because they keep finding more legal Trump votes and more scammy Biden votes, because that's how you steal an election. That's how you do it. 72.3 million people, not easily controlled. 72.3 million Americans thinking for themselves, having enough sense to either check or not believe people like Chris Wallace or Chris Cuomo or, I'm out of Chris's, but the mainstream news media. Think about that. Think about the failure of the misinformation that took place. We were told that Donald Trump would have such a small group of people show up, and Joe Biden, it would just be a party. And I'm not talking like the maskless dance party that took place in Philadelphia last week. Did you see that? Did you see that on TV? This is when I think Fox called Joe Biden the predicted fantasy president, sort of elect, and everybody started dancing, and I mean, there were bodies. I don't have a mask on, but it's a pandemic. What's up with that? What happened, Philly? You blew it. And now what? There's 650,000 illegal votes just in Philly. Gosh. And here's what I say to mainstream news media. Does Rush Limbaugh and the EIB network and the other talk radio folks, do we have to clean up everybody's mess? Apparently so. Because how in the world are these networks going to walk back this ridiculousness? How are these networks, Good Morning America and those morons on The View, how are they going to walk this back when we have now hundreds of people coming forward across 8 states saying, yeah, that wasn't right. That wasn't right. That was broken. That flipped the vote. No, that wasn't stamped right. That came in late. You weren't allowed to see that. You couldn't touch that. That was shredded. That was in a trash can. And every day the mainstream media is on board with the coup. That's why I'm just going to throw this out. I hope I don't get in trouble, but I've become addicted to Newsmax because it's when you go from MSNBC or CBS over to Newsmax, it's like you go from fantasy world to, oh, there's my country. There's reality. 800-282-2882, The Rush Limbaugh Show. To the phones we go. Let's go to Candace, Mount Pleasant. Is that Wisconsin?
Yes, that's correct. I just want to say, I talked to your call screener, and I'm very upset with the GOP people and also punditry. I've been a GOP person for about 15 years now, and I work the polls. I started out as a poll watcher, and I realized, gosh, I have no power as a poll watcher. I want to work the actual polls, so I got involved. Over this election, I was the youngest person there. The elderly are there from 6 a.m. in the morning until a lot of times 9 or 10 o'clock at night. I mean, some people take shifts, but where are the rest of you? Where are the rest of you who claim to be patriots? Why aren't you working polls? That's where the real action is. As we can see, we got punched in the mouth on this election. And one of the big reasons why is because we're not there. There is no such thing as a Republican judge on the south side of Chicago, okay? Or in the cities in Detroit. There's no such thing. There are Democrats behaving and acting like they are GOP people, but they are not. So this has been going on for years, and the pundits have missed it, and the political people have not made sure our people were there and trained. So we're partially to blame, and it has to change, and it has to change before Georgia.
Candace, you covered so many great things there. I was cheering you on. I was giving you fist bumps because, I didn't want to touch you the wrong way because of COVID. You nailed it. We are, and Candace is correct. Candace is correct. The GOP plays a big role in this. In fact, if you ask around, you'll find that some GOP folks own interest in some of the computer systems and the counting systems. So let's go back to what you said. You're exactly right. Where are the young people? And God bless the older Americans. So many older Americans take part in this process because they've seen with their own eyes some of the shenanigans that Biden and the Democrat Party are pulling. They've seen it. They've lived through it. Maybe they served in a foreign country and they saw it. Maybe they experienced a rigged election or they had to go and help with something across a faraway land. They've seen it firsthand. That's why they appreciate freedom. We have a generation that appreciates the iPhone or fast food or whatever it may be, unless they served. That's always the exception. The 17-plus million veterans and the people serving now. That's always the exception. But what Candace said is absolutely true. But I will say this, Candace, and here's the hope. This should make you hopeful. President Donald Trump has brought more diverse and young people to the Republican Party than in 60 years. It is truly, it's so exciting to be here because history is happening before our very eyes and ears, and you will make a difference because we, you, me, Rush, we're the people. Who has let us down? My youngest son was asking me about what's going on in the count, and he's 16, and he hasn't wrecked his car yet. And I said, they're trying to steal the election. He said, what do you mean? And I was thinking of ways to explain this to him, but I said, basically, the news media has failed to do its job. News people and journalists have failed to do their job for so long that we have a public of really smart people, some of whom are just uninformed. We all have, I was talking to a friend down the hall just a minute ago during the break. We all have a family member or a neighbor that they're very successful and, they're great parents or they're a great coach. Maybe they have fancy degrees and they went to great colleges and maybe but for example, I know a surgeon that voted for Biden. How do you do that? How do you get through medical school? You can open up a human body, repair it, and fix it. And you were conned by the news media over Joe Biden. How can you not understand what Joe Biden did with China and Ukraine and Turkey and Russia and a whole bunch of other stuff that nobody wants to cover? Yet you can open up a human being and save their life. This is the craziness that we're in. And where does that come from? It comes from the news media. It comes from the news media not telling the truth, the news media immediately hooking up to the narrative. And as I said before about the 72.3 million so far that voted for Donald Trump, we think for ourselves. We don't just do what we're told. When you say, okay, put your mask on, you can't go to church, you've got to shut down your business, we're the people that say, why? Why are we doing this? I'm perfectly healthy. Why can't we go to the party? We're the people that say why. Yet, unfortunately, some of the smartest people in the world are followers. Now, I don't know if people follow somebody like Biden or some of these news anchors follow that because of their wealth. I have no idea what motivates them. But I want to give you an example of why people don't trust the news media. This is Gayle King and Major Garrett on CBS. Obviously, they're very upset that you and I want to protect our constitutional rights.
Well, it goes against our history. It goes against good governance. And the longer it goes, the deeper it will create divisions in this country about what actually happened in this election. And the president and the Republicans who stand with him will have to bear the responsibility for whatever comes from that. I don't know what that's going to be, but this is not in concert with the way we approach governance in this country. It simply isn't. Everyone knows, all rational Republicans know, these lawsuits are essentially...
Dude, he's like from 1984. This is not rational approaching of governance. What a BSer. Anyway, let's hear the rest.
Hearsay, meaningless, and distractions.
So he just called millions of votes now confirmed by the Gateway Pundit and several other sources, including people that I know personally that are in government. They've confirmed it with me on the record. They have enormous credibility that the Dominion vote counting system computer program, it did not glitch. It is a set algorithm within the voting machine. And just so people understand it, it is a feature. When you buy the machine, you can go in and manually change the count feature. If you want that machine, well, for every Hillary vote that comes in, let's go with 8 for Alexandria Ocasio. I didn't mean to terrify you. That's never going to happen, but they could set that up if they want. Let's hear the rest of Major Faux
Period. That's all they are. They are delaying the inevitable. Every sensible Republican on Capitol Hill knows that in his or her heart of hearts. And their mute testament and loyalty to the president will only serve to encourage him to resist what is inevitable, the transition of power. And history will judge them harshly.
Wow. Throwing in that. Oh, wait. I think there's more. I think he's going to. One thing you can always count on from a liberal: you get a lecture, you get a threat, and you get an insult. Have you noticed that? That's their debate style. You know, their debate style is not evidence, presentation, formulate it, conclude. No. It's you should be ashamed of yourself. This is not how we normally do it. What kind of person are you? Any rational human being would have done it differently. And by the way, there will be hell to pay.
But I will quote Churchill in this one sense about this entire situation we find ourselves in. You cannot reason with a tiger when your head is in its mouth.
And you can't investigate the truth if your head is in your rectum. That's my quote. I'm sorry, that's not Churchill. Major, your name it's so cool. I don't know how you could say what you just said. You have such a cool name. I want to go to Hanover, Pennsylvania. Welcome, LW, to the Rush Limbaugh Show. This is my stomping ground. Welcome.
Yes, and after hearing that, I feel like I'm going to say a conspiracy theory. I mean, look, let me tell you, any program analyst that's worth their salt knows that he who writes the source code controls the input. What I'm trying to say is that what you see on a digital screen is a GUI interface. You might be pushing A, but if I design the code to say A record B, it will record B. And I also can design what's called a switch, which is what you were alluding to, where I could say record A until X, then switch to B. And I can tabulate that. And unless that software is encrypted and coded, you can then have your own personal people go in there and manipulate that switch. And every programmer knows that. It's in SQL code. It's in COBOL code. It's in all code that's used. It's one of the major reasons why most federal agencies do not outsource their code. Trust me, they do not outsource their code.
But the parties outsource our counting. What's up with that?
They do.
Isn't that interesting? The most sacred right we have. In fact, they pay more attention to counting money in banks than they do counting votes.
Yep. Can I say one more thing, Ken?
Yeah. Are you a computer guy, LW?
Yeah, we've spoken in the past locally. I used to be in systems analyst in where I work. I'm now in a different division where I deal with quality. But yes, and it was frightening when I was going through my training, and they showed me how you can manipulate, and I was like, holy cow. My son does digital forensics. They need to check the source code. That's plain and simple. And I got a feeling after what I've heard from Trump, they may be.
Well, I want to thank you for calling, LW, and you just brought more clarity to this. And, I know the Rush Limbaugh show audience is hungry for a way they can make a difference. I know there's been talk of rallies and things of that nature, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with rallies, and God knows prayer is and should be the foundation of all of this. What I say to people when they flatter me with asking me a question, I say, we need to stay positive. We have to stay focused. We have to stay engaged. This is no time to be mopey, bitter, or angry. I mean, the man that hosts this show every day is a stellar example of how to punch through adversity and still get your job done on the EIB network, the Rush Limbaugh show. And remember, there's 72.3 million of us, and what LW was just talking about is, just to add to what I said at the top of the show, get in touch with your state legislator ASAP. Get the phone numbers. Look it up now during the show. You have to call your legislature because we have a constitutional stopgap in here. This is the brilliance. This is the checks and balance system of the United States. And people like Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton, and it goes all the way back through history. Wealthy leftist elites, and sadly, not everybody was in the Democrat Party. There were some Republicans that are involved in it now and then. They've always thought, I'm smarter than the American people. I can shortcut the Constitution. I can go around the rules. Governor Wolf of Pennsylvania is a wonderful example of that. He thinks he's the smartest guy in the room. He's not. And you can't just violate the Constitution when 72.3 million people just elected or reelected Donald J. Trump. And now you're saying, yeah, I found something in the trash and I want to count it 7 days later. That's not going to happen. Electors cannot be seated when the election is in doubt. That's checks and balances. States have the most authority at this time in history. More than Chris Wallace, more than Gayle King, more than Oprah. I know some people think that, Alyssa Milano, she's so smart. She's almost as smart as Ashley Judd. They don't know jack about this country or the Constitution. You must call your states. You want to help President Trump? You want to save a stolen election as we uncover more facts. That's what we do. I'm Ken Matthews. We'll be right back. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Rush Limbaugh Show. 800-282-2882, the EIB network. My name is Ken Matthews. I am thrilled to be sharing this afternoon with you. Millions of listeners and 72.3 million people that voted for Donald J. Trump. And when hundreds of witnesses have come forward and computer analysis has been done and video has been shown, we can't get major news networks or newspapers to even investigate. That should worry the heck out of you as an American. Let's go to Spencer in Montgomery, Texas. Hi, Spencer. You're on the Rush Limbaugh Show.
Thank you for your service, Mr. Matthews, calling from the home of the Texas flag. And I'm a 41-year-old voter. I have never been compelled to dial a radio show nor contact a state representative until yesterday, coincidentally on Veterans Day. And I urged my representatives here, even though this is not a swing state, that if they need inspiration of what a fight looks like or how to fight, talk to some of the great Americans that made this place great in the first place. And if you're not with us, get out of the way. What's on the line is the Republican Party, and I hope they realize it, and I hope they're paying attention. We will not stand with them unless they're standing with the president.
Thank you so much for your call, Spencer. Extremely well put, and I couldn't agree more. And that's part of the problem. The president is surrounded by people other than his family and people I can count on my hand, some of whom I've had the honor of meeting personally, in the White House that he can trust. The rest, you just don't know. You don't know if someone's going to go Romney on you or Boehner or Paul Ryan or Pat Toomey. You just don't know. You don't know when someone's going to lose their spine, or maybe they have a big lobby offer, or maybe they don't want to set a liberal financial opportunity, so they stick their head up like Senator Pat Toomey and say, what fraud? I don't see any fraud. I mean, I don't think the president should be doing this. I don't see any issue. Well, then you're blind, and that's not a slight toward blind people. It shows you now that the rubber has hit the road, just like Spencer just said. The rubber has hit the road. So, yes, let's fly the flag. Yes, let's vote. Let's do it. We had the young woman call from Chicago earlier that said, why aren't there more young people at the precincts? And that's a great question. So many older Americans have seen firsthand what freedom looks like, what it tastes like, and what it's like to lose it. They've seen things, many in the case of veterans that Spencer was referring to, they've seen things that most people cannot imagine. And they know how easily it happens. At the top of the show today, I said, this reminds me of a third world election. Not because of President Trump, because of the Democrat Party. The people who pay your salary have come to you and said, sir, ma'am, we have a problem here. Can you help us? And what have we gotten from the Democrats for years? I don't know what you're talking about. What are you, a racist? It's wake-up time. It really is. You got to get on the phone. Republicans and Democrats, get on the phone. Get on the phone to your state reps and say, hey, do you have a copy of the Constitution? Because there's probably not one at the local university. So you may have to go Barnes & Noble and buy one. I have 7. I can loan you one. Read the Constitution and understand that this is part of the dynamic and the greatness of this country. That's what checks and balances is. When things go sideways like they have, with Joe Biden, with Barack Obama, with Hillary in the soft coup. When things go sideways, you can fall back on the American people. 800-282-2882. This is the EIB Network. I'm Ken Matthews, and we'll be right back. It's all coming out, and sadly, as an American, who do you trust to get the information other than the Rush Limbaugh Show and some other talk shows and some great alternate media and alternative media outlets, whether it's Cheryl Atkinson, Sidney Powell, Breitbart, Newsmax. I mean, there's some great platforms out there. I can't go through them all, but the things that are breaking today will have a major impact on our lives, and all we're getting from mainstream news media is Biden may sign on to the new Green Deal, or who's he going to put in his cabinet. I don't even know if Joe Biden can open a cabinet by himself. And he got a lot of votes, too. I mean, at least that's what the computers say. Coming up, we're going to showcase a couple counties in Michigan, and we're going to go back to your calls because we want to get an update from around the greatest nation on earth. I want to hear how it's going on the ground because we can't get journalists to investigate. We can't get some of our politicians to respond. I'm confident that in the next 48 hours, there's going to be a lot of responding from your state reps because once you make it clear to them that you're part of the 72.3 million people that are fed up and we will never vote for you again, we will go out of our way to make sure you're never elected again unless you wake up and look at the voter fraud and the fact that this is not a coincidence. This is a systemic issue. You know what that is. It is great to see you this afternoon on the radio, on the Rush Limbaugh Show. And if you would like to send well wishes to America's anchor guy, Anchorman, for Rush, go to special notes to Rush at rushlimbaugh.com. And there are beautiful notes and letters coming in. And there's, if you want to see just a wonderful website and a slice of Americana and the greatness of this country and the greatness of this audience and the love of its host, Rush Limbaugh, go to rushlimbaugh.com. Check out the Limbaugh letter while you're there. And don't forget to get the app. I have the app now. It's awesome. Now, it's one more device in my house that disturbs everybody because I'm listening to all these different things and taking notes. But check it all out. And if you want to help the President of the United States, I urge you to call your state legislature. Call the people there. That's how we stop the theft of this election. It is an election theft. Somebody messaged me on my Facebook, at Ken Matthews, and they said, why are you calling it stealing the election? Because it is. It's a coordinated operation stealing an election. It's not easy. You have to have a whole bunch of people in on it. You got to call people up and say, hey, Ms. Pelosi, you know that company that counts votes? How much money do you have in it? I would love to see. Wouldn't you love to see journalists do journalism? Wouldn't that be the best? No, what do we get? What do we get from journalists? We get, hey, Mr. Vice President, what flavor is your ice cream? That's why we're in the position we're in right now, if you want to know. That's why we're in. That's why we're in. Because when the Democrats are falsifying COVID death and COVID cases, journalists are reporting on, is Cardi B getting married? Now, here's how we are being distracted. This is what I was explaining to my son regarding what I believe is widespread. I think the big issue is computer. I think it's the Dominion company. That's how you really control elections. That's how they do it in foreign countries. We have the technology. We know it was done. We need diagnostics. We need audits. We need all that stuff that the computer guy that called from PA was sharing with us. But here's what I said. You need a distraction, and it could be legitimate. So all units respond to the gas station robbery. While across the street, the bank is being emptied. And I believe that's what we're seeing now. It's all fraudulent. It's all wrong. It's all illegal. But the smaller crimes, if you will, can be poo-pooed. And that's why you hear morons in the Republican Party, and there are plenty, I don't need to name them all. I don't have time. That's why morons in the Republican Party as well are saying, okay, so there were a couple bag of votes at the, post office. So what? Some dead people voted. That's going to happen. It's not going to affect the election because they're drunk on the Kool-Aid. Now, that Kool-Aid might be their big fat salary. It might be the fear of being picked on Twitter because, let's face it, there's not a lot of guts in Congress right now. But that's what we're seeing. So all units are responding to other crimes, the gas station robbery. That's the analogy. That's what we're seeing now. Bags of votes, dead people voting, counterfeit ballots, fake signature ballots, fake IDs, fake postmarks, all legit. They're all happening. It's happening right here in my lovely Commonwealth, run by Governor Wolf, a wolf in Obama's clothing, and a nutty political hack, Josh Shapiro, who wants to run for governor, and he thinks if he continues to be, like the sidekick of our governor, if you will, he's going to get it. It's very complicated. It's a Democrat thing. It's a blue state for the time being. These are all fraud, what I just mentioned. Every one of these things it's improper, and you should not certify the vote. But Democrats and Republicans explain them away individually. That's why the news media is not showing us a pattern. The news media is either too lazy, too stupid, or in on it, not to show us the pattern. Not to say, oh, those people in Pennsylvania, those people in Michigan, they're just whining. Well, what about the other 7 states? So are you going to say that you've got a bunch of Americans just whining? You have a bunch of whistleblowers coming forward and taking the heat? Did you see what they did to that post office guy? CNN said he recanted. He didn't recant. He was interrogated for 3 hours without a lawyer, and that's standard leftist fare. We've seen it from Carter Page to Mike Flynn. If you come out and start throwing the truth around, the people that want to control us all are going to shut you down. Most people in D.C. or in your state capital, are gutless or self-serving. I think we can agree on that. I know it's not politically correct to say. This is talk radio. That's why I'm in talk radio. That's why I have the honor of being on Rush Limbaugh's show. Because we don't have to kiss politically correct butt like Good Morning America. Most people in the news media are the same way. That's why politicians and the news media kind of work together. They get along really well. Have you noticed that? Have you noticed that there's a slight division between the 72.3 million people that voted for Donald J. Trump and John King or Chris Wallace? Back to the analogy. So all the units are responding to the gas station robbery. And they still trigger alarms, and people still respond, but they can wiggle out of it, and they can say, look, let's move on. Gosh, it was a gas station. Get over it. It's still a safe town. Let's heal the country. Look at how divisive President Trump is, trying to count all the votes that he earned, and he earned them. Let me tell you, you want to talk about someone who earned his reelection? He certainly didn't get any help from anybody else. He earned it. And while he was reelected, he pulled along down ballot. He strengthened the House. He saved the Senate. And some of those people are still stabbing him in the back. That's why, if you're one of that group that voted for him, you got to hop on the phone. Meanwhile, in the analogy, across the street, underneath the bank, with the help of the bank president, some guards, like a Jim Comey guy or maybe a John Brennan type dude, the bank is completely emptied and no one even broke a window or a door. No one even noticed. You might think I'm using that as a analogy like the computers. I am. That is how they're stealing this election for Joe Biden. They've done it before. The same feature was on the Diebold voting machines. You may remember that from 2001. For years, people have said, we need to remove this ability of a computer to flip an election. Right now, we have a computer. You go in, you take your ballot, you fill in your little ovals or however you do it in your state. It goes into the computer. From that point on, your guess is as good as mine. That's a third world country dynamic right there. If you're driving home saying, I hope my vote gets counted, that's a third world country. And that's what Democrats and Republicans, the party, the establishment, the lobbyists, and the news media has allowed to happen. That's why there's a hand count. There's a hand count taking place in Georgia. Why? Because they use the same computers as those 7 other states I mentioned. Bear with me. I'll bring them back up here in a second. I don't have it on my screen. I'll bring them up in a minute. The night before the election in Georgia, who showed up? The voting computer dude. Hey, I just got to check something. How do we know that? Because 3 people came forward and they said it. 3 people that were at the precinct. That's the other thing that drives me crazy about the mainstream news media, and Democrats in particular. You guys could see a rumor on Twitter from a drunk rock star, and you'll put it in your headline if it hurts Trump. But 3 men or women, Americans, that's job was to watch a precinct or pay attention, had concerns about something, and you laugh it off. We're done with this. We are so done with this. I'm just talking about the 72.3 million, because those are the people that are awake. Those are the people that voted for Donald J. Trump. We didn't buy Chris Cuomo's whatever. And I can never understand what Van Jones is saying, because he's always crying. Van, it hurts your credibility. It really does. There's nothing wrong with the man crying, but, come on, man. If I can quote Joe Biden. 800-282-2882. Now, really quickly, what is a hand count? Just to explain it, this is not. Here's what I thought it was before someone explained it to me. I thought it was someone sitting around, a bunch of people sitting around like on the floor with a case of beer and some chips. 1, 2, 3, 4. No, what it is, all the ballots are separated and put in stacks of the candidate. So you have a Joe Biden stack, a Trump stack, a whatever stack, a stack this, congressman this, senator that, candidate that. Then the machine's only job is to count the material paper. That is a fair count because you can control what's going in and coming out, and you can confirm it. Once you get into scans and digital and barcodes, that is when somebody like Dominion or the other 3 companies that dominate our election process, including in Europe, by the way. This stuff's going on in Europe. This stuff happens in Europe all the time. People go to bed in Europe and they think they've got a new whatever, and the next day they wake up and go, what happened? I don't know. You have to ask the people that run the computers. That's how you can spin it. The hand count is the best thing. If I had my way, we would hand count every single vote in this election. Because if we don't, you have lost the trust of the American people. Now, I know people like Barack Obama don't care about that. But we need to remind our legislators that we outnumber them. 72.3 million people reelected Donald Trump. I think it's safe to say that that's a force to be dealt with. We'll be right back. Your online identity is always at risk. And Rush has the solution. That's why there's LifeLock.
My good friends, I hope this doesn't happen to you. That said, there is a much better chance that you will be a victim of an identity theft crime before you're a victim of any other kind of crime. Did you know that? I hope it doesn't happen to you, but those are the odds. Online identity theft is a newer kind of offense, and it's widespread out there. It's a silent crime. It happens often without anybody knowing that it's actually happened. Sometimes, most of the time, if you're a victim of cybercrime, you won't know it for a long time. It's because cyber thieves are successful at hacking into a massive database, stealing a large number of identities, but they don't start using those things immediately. It takes some time. They sell the stolen identities, and then the people that buy them then take their time utilizing them. Nobody's in a real hurry here. Once they've got your data, they've got it. They can do anything they want with it. Then they'll maybe plant malware onto a device that reads credit cards without anybody knowing. However it happens, the point is you don't know it's happening unless you get LifeLock. Yeah, LifeLock specifically will let you know that you have been targeted. LifeLock will let you know whether they've succeeded in targeting you or not. LifeLock is the leader in online identity theft protection. Now, no one company can prevent all identity theft, my good friends, but LifeLock is the one company that provides online monitoring on your behalf. They got a full restoration team in the event that you do become a victim, meaning they've got a team of people that will drop everything and not stop until they have resolved the identity theft and associated crimes that happen to you. Not until it's all fixed do they go away. So between that, the 24/7 online vigilance and experts that help you figure out what happened to restore your good name, you're going to be impressed with LifeLock's comprehensive protection. Sign up, LifeLock.com, get protected. LifeLock.com, the website, use my name, and you'll save 25% off your first year's plan.
So glad you're listening to the Rush Limbaugh Show. The number is 800-282-2882. My name is Ken Matthews. We are covering so much ground today, and people are calling, they're messaging, they're going to rushlimbaugh.com. People are energized, and this is a challenge. As the world spins out of control, and most of that spin is sped up by the news media, whether it's the COVID pandemic, when they need it, the distancing when they need it, the riots when they need them, Antifa when they need backup, whatever it may be, it's so challenging not to be upset, is it not? Seriously. I was talking to Mike before I came on, and I said, God, I'm looking at the stuff that's breaking just during the show. The computer stuff and the analysis and all this stuff that's proving state to state to state, the stolen votes, the fraudulent votes. And then you turn on most news organizations and newspapers, and you go online, and it's either banned, censored, or mocked. I've never, other than dictatorships, socialism, communism, and other faulty forms of government, I've never seen the government mock its own people to the degree that the left does it. You know, we're not smart enough for our own health care. We're not smart enough to manage our own money. We're not smart enough to understand voting machines. I bet you most people in America can count better than what's going on in some of those precincts. 650,000 votes in Philadelphia now. There's so many. There's a stack. There's about 10 different cases that have broke in the last 24 hours. The biggest story now is we have to make sure that we share with our friends, family, neighbors, how the Constitution works, because a lot of the people in the Democrat Party don't know how it works. You can't like tune into Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and then get it confirmed by Joy Behar and get a review from Don Lemming to figure out what's going on in this country. But the second article of the Constitution says that your state legislature, not the courts, they're the final authority. You get in touch with those people today. What is today? Thursday, yeah. Get in touch with them. Some may be at lunch now. Some might be napping. It's too rainy in PA to be on the golf course. Get in touch with them and say, hey, you better not verify or certify this election because it already has proven to be fraudulent, and they're not legally allowed to. If there's something wrong in your state, they have to stop and examine it and audit it. So I want you to demand those things. Computer audits, hand counts, accessibility, observation, and not this garbage that they do in Philly. Why don't you stand over on the other side of the river Yeah. Tammy will count it. She'll give you a thumbs up when it's done. No. You need to be able to see it. The first way is done in every state across the country, making election laws for presidential elections. That's where a lot of the states went sideways, and in our case, and we have kind of a dictator, Governor Wolf. That's just my opinion, though. It hasn't been proven yet. Not until the next lockdown. But I knew when he said postmarks don't matter, signatures don't matter, and you can just get your vote in any time you want, and we're going to do mail-in votes because of COVID. I knew then the steel was on. I just didn't know how extensive it would be, and I didn't know that would be a cloak to cover up what they're doing with the computers. The second way invokes the Electors Clause of the Constitution. This makes state legislatures, not the courts, not CNN, not Fox. The state is the highest authority in determining if a state election's laws are violated in the presidential election and what response is appropriate for those violations. So now is the time. This is where the rubber hits the road for the greatness of our country. See what your state legislature is worth. Call up those people that talk big on the campaign and have fancy websites and demand a recount. Pretend elect Joe Biden has announced a 10 to 6 week. Was it 10 to 6, Mike, or 4 to 6? I mean, okay, I'm sorry. Okay, yeah, 10 to 6 wouldn't make sense. That'd be like a schedule. 4 to 6 week mandatory national shutdown and wearing mask. No, I'm just laughing because we, as conservatives, we warned you what was going to happen. And you're like, no, it's not. No, I just wear my mask. Why? Why do you wear a mask? All you have to do is ask someone that question, and if they are compliant and they're Biden voters, they get angry. But a lot of people can explain why they do or they don't wear a mask. Anyway, so that's coming. And I noticed that after President Trump did a damn good job handling COVID, Joe Biden is just mimicking some of the stuff that President Trump did or said. And because the news media is so terrible, no one knows what the heck. Who said what when? That's why there's still grown men and women running around saying Donald Trump locks up kids at the border. Even though Barack Obama built the fenced-in areas, not necessarily cages, they're fenced areas. And he was the first one to do that policy. And the president's policy, by the way, and this is something, again, that a lot of people don't understand. You have to separate adults from children, not only because of human trafficking, because if they're not the child's legal parent, you don't know what the dynamic is there. You don't know if these two people are kidnapping someone over the border or whatever. Anyway, I digress. I want to get back to what's going on with the count. Tucker Carlson last night did a phenomenal job on Fox, as he always does. I didn't mean to say did. I was thinking of Judge Jeanine Pirro because she was fired. But we need to keep an eye on all these people that tell the truth, because obviously, if you tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth, you're not that welcome in mainstream media. There's a lot of, shh, we're not going to talk about fraud. We're not going to talk about the real COVID numbers. We're not going to talk about Mueller. And that's another thing. Not to beat Mueller up. I'm just kidding. I would love to. That'd be fun. Just figuratively speaking. Why is it that Mueller and John Brennan and James Comey, and let's just face it, every single person, including McCabe, every single person that was involved with the first coup in framing Donald Trump after he was exonerated by the Mueller report that took 2 years of our lives, and that's what the Democrats worked on for 2 years, and they worked for a year on the impeachment, and then the past year, they've been trying to keep Joe Biden breathing in the basement. So what the hell have they done for 4 years? I don't know. But why is it that all those people are walking around free? They're being hired by news networks. I'm looking at Jim Comey now on MSNBC. What the heck? Dude, you should be in jail. They're writing books. They're going on The View. This is why we laugh at the news media. If the news media did its job, there wouldn't even have been the need for a Mueller investigation. Actually, Joe Biden wouldn't even have been running. I want to get back to the phones because we have a stack of great calls, and we want people to come in or call in with the state of your state on the Rush Limbaugh Show, because I know for a fact 72.3 million of us, this family of Donald Trump voters, we don't trust the news media anymore. We trust each other. We trust the people. That's how our government has been designed. And somehow the news media kind of squirmed its way in. And, well, what about us? We're an esteemed fourth estate. You're not an estate. You're not esteemed. You have no credibility. You're part of the problem. So don't worry. The people will fix it. Let's go to Ted in Raleigh, North Carolina. Hi, Ted. Welcome to the Rush Limbaugh Show.
Ken, good afternoon. Thank you. If we, and I'm talking about the 72.3 million Trump voters, accept this third world election, like the media is pushing us to believe, like Fox News and Yahoo, then shouldn't we be expected to accept third world living conditions soon after they eliminate the Second Amendment?
Well, it's already happening in major blue cities. It's interesting that you bring that up, Ted. I can't help but wonder if we can just get a few more people to do what they're told. Like, I don't know, how many people are you having over for Thanksgiving? Did you get permission from your governor?
No.
You know what I mean?
10.
That's where
10.
That's
yes.
That's
10.
Oh, it's 10. Mm-hmm. You're allowed to have 10 over. Okay. Well, I think, thanks for calling, Ted. You bring up a great point. I mean, we should, look, you get who you vote for, and legally, we need to count votes, and we need to examine this more carefully. And something else that I want to bring up here, in addition to you calling your state reps, and I know I can't say this enough, but I have some research that reflects on what we were talking about earlier about these voting machines. And it's really, and this is the other thing, I really believe, and I get this whenever I listen to Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi talk, or Cory Booker, they think that they're really smarter than you and I are, and I don't know if that's the case. So what we found already in Michigan, as I promised I would tell you that there's big problems in Michigan. There's all kinds of voter fraud going on in Detroit, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, of course, but I want to go back to Michigan. There is a PhD and several other engineers that saw how it looked like weighted tabulation to them, but they weren't sure. So they did a experiment. I'm going to put this on my social media platforms. I will put a link on it on my website, kenmatthewsmedia.com, because no mainstream news media will touch this. There's about 86 there's 86 counties in Michigan. The top 4 counties were analyzed by scientists, because I know how much Democrats like science. Trump's margin was reduced by a minimum of 138,000 votes because the computer was programmed in the top 3 counties to decrease Trump's votes at a certain breakoff point and give them to Biden. It's called a linear transfer. It's an algorithm, and it happens to be a feature of the computer system. It's not a glitch. It's a feature. So you can take 2-to-1 or 1-to-2 or 2-to-3. It's called a weighted tabulation feature. And it's in all our vote counting software. And it's been around since 2001. And neither one of the major parties want to get rid of it. Why do you think that is? Because if a guy like Trump comes along and things get really crazy and a whole bunch of people are going to reelect him, well, you can't have that. I mean, at the end of the day, a lot of these people talk trash in D.C., in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and other capitals around the country in your states. Oh, it's all about the people. It's the people's vote that counts. Your vote counts. Really? Because when it counts, you mess with it. If it really counted, Joe Biden wouldn't be, I don't even know if he walks anymore, he wouldn't be like moping around or sashaying around with his pretend presidential office plaque. The more Republican precincts, the more votes Trump loses. They did a linear transfer analysis in the top 3 counties, and that's why you get that analysis in the news media that says, well, you know, this a lot of people here are Republican. It's weird that they're not voting for Trump. And then Mitt Romney will say something stupid like, that's because everybody hates Trump, like me, but they like all the other Republicans. I say wrong. I say there's a better chance of you voting for several of your Democrat favorites and Trump rather than the other way around. So they did a scientific analysis, and every single transfer was linear. Now, you guys that do, you men and women that do code and computers, you know what I mean. There's nothing unprogrammed in that computer. There's no such thing as a glitch. It's not an anomaly. It's not a, what a coincidence that every time Joe got within a certain percent or Trump got a certain percentage ahead of Joe in blue state, blue counties, blue precincts in battleground states, like the 8 we're talking about at the moment, or 6, excuse me, soon to be 8. Every time that happened, Trump started to lose votes in the wee hours of the morning, and Biden started to gain votes. Now, the beauty of it is, when you come in and say, hey, I need to see the computer, what went in and what came out? We don't know. Now do you see why it's a third world thing? Now do you see why people in Philadelphia don't want someone like you or me sticking our nose into our own business? Actually, more voters voted for Trump, straight ticket, than any other time in history. The same with more Democrats voting for Trump. So they went to really heavy Republican precincts around the country, and they set it up where they could take the votes. The algorithm will take the vote from the Republican pool of votes and throw it over to the Biden. Now, I bring up the scientific aspect of it. You know commonsensically, if you're one of the 72.4 million that voted for Trump in the United States, you know darn well that a guy who can't find his way to a rally by himself is not going to get a crowd of more than 10, is going to beat Trump by 60,000 votes in a county that has loved him for 4 years and elected nothing but Republicans. That's common sense. But the media and the left doesn't have common sense. So I invite you, let's believe the science. Let's count, let's audit, and let's be patient, because I know, and Joe Biden would agree with me, we should not certify this election until every vote's counted. We'll be right back. It is unconstitutional for your state legislature to certify an election or seat electors if there is fraud or irregularities that can be proven. I think it's safe to say that at least 6 states have that situation now. One of them is the state I'm from. I'm Ken Matthews on the Rush Limbaugh Show. And, we're in that same boat with a lot of irregularities. There's lawsuits at play. Several states have triggered a recount. And I think we should demand a recount just based on not just the fraudulent coverage, but the lack of transparency. I mean, who's trying to hide what when you think about it? Isn't that always seems to be the case, is it not? Especially during the last 4 years. Every time they come at President Trump with something, he's the first to say, all right, release the phone tape. Release all the documents from Mueller. I have nothing to hide, whatever. And it never happens. And we're in the same boat now. They set you up. For several years, this was part of the plan. Let's pretend that Trump is a big meanie and he's not going to leave the White House and he's going to steal the election. No. That's why he's the guy saying count all the legal votes. If he was trying to steal the election, he would say, don't you dare touch that machine. But for some reason, liberals with PhDs don't understand this. I don't understand why they don't get it. I'm sure they still think Trump is a Russian spy, but he's not. Let's grab another phone call. This is Chicago. Dave in Chicago. Dave, thanks for calling the Rush Limbaugh Show.
Thank you for taking my call. I want to start off by saying I don't want to downplay the severity of the China virus because I know it's serious and deadly. But here in Illinois, they're getting ready to do total lockdown again. They've already shut down all restaurants. And I know in the last debate with Biden and Trump, Biden said that he is for more lockdowns, and it just sticks in my mind the way Trump said that. We cannot do that. We won't have an economy to come back to, and it's nerve-wracking. It's upsetting. Maybe the only good news is I am seeing a lot of people in restaurants defying that order, but it's still it's scary to think that they could collapse our economy by keeping these lockdowns.
Well, I'm thrilled that you called, Dave, and it's funny that you mentioned Chicago because that's, as you know, politically one of the dirtiest cities. It's just a corrupt, it's like so many progressive Democrat cities. They get run into the ground economically, the school system, the drugs, the graft, the corruption, and then the ridiculousness. And there's some hardworking, great law enforcement officers in Chicago trying to do their job, but you can't do your job as a cop if you're being run by a progressive liberal. But getting back to what Dave said, the mask is a compliance test. Who will do what we say without pushing back? I said this months ago. My late grandfather is spinning in his grave right now. He fought against the Japanese in the Pacific in World War II. And if he knew it would be this easy to shut down the greatest economy in the world and paralyze the greatest nation in the world, think about how easy it was without any evidence of the level of severity that they claimed was at play. And like Dave just said from Chicago, and if you feel this way, you don't have to say this anymore, especially conservatives. You don't have to always preface it because the Democrats know the coverage of COVID and their spin on COVID has been BS for months. We know it's severe. We know it targets certain people. We know lives have been lost. But, like the president said, and by the way, the president got over it. He's 74 years old and he beat it in 2 weeks. Should we destroy our entire nation over an amped up version of the flu that no one will tell us the truth about? And they won't. The news media has not told us about false reporting, false death, false cases. They've lowered the threshold on the case verification. You could have like one little tiny little COVID thing in your body that's not even related to that virus, and you're a COVID case. Or you could get hit in the head with a hammer, and you're a COVID case. And we know this. This has been going on. It's almost the same way they're handling the voting thing. What are you talking about? There's no fake deaths. There's no fake COVID count. We're not shutting down the economy. Who benefits when the economy gets shut down in the United States? That's a great question to ask. We'll be right back. And, of course, some of the big news of the day, analysis of election night data from all states, now showing millions of votes either switched from President Trump to Joe Biden, or they just were lost using Dominion and other counting systems. Kind of crazy. Your calls coming up. Thank you for tuning in. Rush Limbaugh, America's anchorman. I have lost track of the times I have said over the decades, someone will bring something up to me, some scoop, some bit of news, something that's happening, something that's relevant to this great audience of great Americans. They'll bring it up to me and I'll say, oh, yeah, that was on Rush. I heard that on Rush. And from time to time, you'll notice that that's been happening with Tucker. That's why I think everybody's angry at Tucker Carlson. Just like sometimes people get angry with Rush. Because there's only so much room for so much truth in an environment where a select group of people want to control you and think they're smarter than you are. Now, maybe they don't own a calculator. Maybe they don't know that as of now, on the East Coast, in the third hour of the Rush Limbaugh Show on November 12th, there are 72.3 votes for Donald J. Trump for re-election. And I don't even have the latest update. That's a lot. We are a strong group of people. And we're informed, in many cases, because of Rush Limbaugh. Because when the news media was saying, look outside, see how the sky is green and it's raining purple? And you said, I don't think so. And then you turned on CNN. And they said it, and everybody said it, but you said, no, the sky is blue. You turned on and you heard Rush Limbaugh say, the sky is blue, and everybody went, thank God. Somebody has a clue in news media. And it's Mr. Limbaugh. That's why it's always a thrill to be sitting in this chair. He is resting. He's planning on getting back as soon as he can. It's treatment week. I just wanted to update you on that. Also, another update. Senator Bernie Sanders has agreed to be the U.S. Secretary of Labor Camps if he's picked by Joe Biden. So, that'll be good. I would imagine he'd be fun to have around the camp. What are you doing? Why aren't you working harder? Come on. I got money to make. 72.3 million people. We know our mission. We know what it is. How do we save our country? It's got to be frustrating. 17 million veterans, they understand that dynamic. Many of them made the ultimate sacrifice, and they are such an example of getting out there and getting things done. But we have a chance to do that now. We have a chance to peacefully, in a positive manner, focused and engaged, contact our state legislatures, especially in the states that are at play, and we'll review those later. Most people know them now. Earlier we were talking about Michigan, but we've got all kinds of situations. We have Nevada and Wisconsin and Georgia. There's a recount in Georgia, and, of course, Pennsylvania, the battleground state. And it goes on. Those legislators constitutionally cannot certify an election, nor can they seat. Those electors can't be seated unless the legislature signs off on it. That's the beauty, that's the brilliance of the Constitution of the United States, Article 2. Everywhere you look, our founding fathers put up protections so somebody like Joe Biden couldn't come in with the help and support of Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton and Team China and flip millions of votes from the President of the United States to his side in the dark of night, and that has now been proven through an analysis of election night data. And that's the tip of the iceberg. So the next person who says to you, oh, this voter fraud thing, that's just a conspiracy theory, don't you get tired of that? Don't you get tired? The people that refuse to investigate who was on the Epstein plane and who was on Epstein Island, they just totally blacked it out. They refuse to investigate Hunter or any of the Biden family. You come to them with a stack of affidavits and witnesses and videos and ballots all mangled up with names from who knows where, and they got nothing to see here. So I think what 72.3 people voting for President Donald J. Trump prove is this. We're just getting tired of the news media in lockstep with our government, in particular the Democrats, saying, hey, Americans, shut up and put your mask on and listen and do what you're told. That's what we're kind of done with now. And see, Trump reignited that in all of us. if you are a student of history, and chances are you are if you listen to this show, and you know Rush is, we haven't seen an American spirit and an energy ignited by a man and his ideas and the way he treats us since early in our history. And this really upsets people like Joe Biden and Chuck Schumer, because they're about as boring as watching paint dry. And plus, they lie. It's like a double whammy. You're not only a liar, you're a boring liar. Let's go to Sherry in Casper, Wyoming. That is beautiful country. You're on the Rush Limbaugh Show.
To talk to you. I've been with Rush since the late 80s, and he helped me raise my kids in California during the 90s, and it was wonderful. I had a couple points to make, and one is you were mentioning earlier today about what can we do out here in Trump country, and what I was thinking that another thing we could do is we could donate to the Trump campaign, because I think that is what he is using to hire the investigators. I know some are volunteer, but if the 72 million of us would put in $10 or $50 or whatever, he needs a lot more money to get more investigators out there. And the other point I had to make was that there would probably be a lot of people, or some, that would be dyed-in-the-wool Democrats that might come in and volunteer and say, yeah, I'm a Republican, I'd love to do this. But we don't want to have Democrats in sheep's clothing come in and sabotage this recount like they did the first count. And so my axiom is, don't trust, but do verify that they were a Republican in the last 2016 election, so that we have good people.
Sherry, those are great thoughts, great advice, and I didn't even think about capitalizing on the wonderful support Trump has, because from what I understand, he does have to generate, his campaign has to generate their own funds to do this. You know, and there's a lot of lawyers involved, and I pick on lawyers a lot, but I have to admit that there are some good ones in the mix, and that's the other thing. And I am so far from ever giving advice to someone at the level of President Donald Trump. I just pray that the lawyers he's bringing into the mix are being vetted, because God knows, just like politicians, there's plenty of opportunists in that realm. And, even working on the Trump campaign is going to look good on your resume. We need people, like Sherry said, we need people that are going to be honest and focused and ethical. And I couldn't agree more. Whoever we bring in, and this is the part, because the news media refuses to cover the biggest election theft in the history of the United States. I still don't know why they're not doing it, but thank goodness for Rush, because he's on it every day, and he told you months ago. And I remember early on in the COVID thing, remember? And we said, you know what's going to happen? They're going to shut it down, so people are going to lose their businesses. You're not going to be able to go to the movies, the mall. They're going to say, hey, I saw you heading to that wedding, and I ratted you out. And that is the communist, socialist, leftist dynamic to a T, which is you need to do what we tell you to do. And people who are not doing it, if you rat on them, you'll be rewarded. That's how communism was built. That's how it was built. And the Nazis operated the same way. If you see your neighbor not wearing a mask, if you see your neighbor with 4 extra people mourning the loss of their family member at a funeral, you need to call this toll-free number so the governor can get them in trouble. How did this even happen? Like I said, my grandfather, among other people in my family, fought in wars, and people would worry about that in the 40s and the 50s. You know, we would worry about the nuclear threat, and then we would worry about the communist threat, and we would say, if they come to get us, how are they going to come in? You think they're going to come by boat? Is it going to be a submarine? Is it going to be a missile launch? It's going to be B-52s? What the heck's going on? Little did we know it would be a bunch of blue state governors that would say, put on your mask, step away from the storefront. And then the economy would crash. And then smart people, sadly, so many smart people on the left think they're the smartest people in the room. Have you noticed that? And sometimes smart, well-intentioned people are the least informed. And when we really needed smart people, they got on the wrong wagon. They got on the wrong bandwagon. They got on the, I don't like Trump on Twitter, he's mean. What the heck's wrong with you? Do you not see what's happened in the last 4 years? Have you not looked at any chart or graph or economic indicator or marker? Have you not looked at the 411 miles of wall on the border? Have you not looked at things that were a problem that were solved, like the Veterans Administration, like crappy trade deals, like funding black colleges, prison reform? No. The really smart liberals are not looking at that. They're looking at his hair or how he looked at someone the wrong way. Or they're busy taking Kelly McEnany out of context. You know, it's the news media's job, it's a journalist's job to put things in context. That's why you watch the news, right? You watch the news, supposedly. You want to get caught up on what happened, they put it in context. Here's the event. Here are the facts. Here's how it may or may not affect you. But the news hasn't done that for decades. They take everything out of context. The story comes in, the evidence, the facts, whatever it may be. And then the news people, the geniuses, they all sit around and they say, okay, how can we arrange this so the public believes COVID is the Black Plague? And the public believes that voter fraud is just, it's Trump being Trump. He's a big baby. He just doesn't want to leave the White House. And we're supposed to believe people that have been lying to us for decades. Well, that's over. I'm Ken Matthews on The Rush Limbaugh Show. We'll be right back. The Rush Limbaugh Show. Thanks for tuning in. My name's Ken Matthews. Don't forget, you can send a great message to Rush at rushlimbaugh.com. And you can send them well wishes, etc. And there's also some good stuff like signing up for the app and the Limbaugh letter. 1-800-282-2882 if you want to join the conversation. You know, it's interesting. I've worked so hard this week, and I've been very good. I haven't been yelling. I'm a little hoarse because all last night I was on the phone, and it just seems like I've been on the phone. I'm sure you have experienced that as well, whether you're texting people or you're calling people. What's going on? What is up? Did you just see that? Did you just see that on the news? What happened? You're not alone. The entire world, speaking of the world, by the way, which I don't know that much about. I don't travel much, but I think it's absurd that people are congratulating President, projected elect Joe Biden before the votes have been counted, before the vote has been certified, and before President Donald J. Trump is conceded. And that's why I'm so proud I voted for Donald J. Trump, like the other 72.3, now 0.4 million people. Here is the biggest news of the day, in my opinion, and there are so many other things at play. The biggest news, I think, to us as Americans, and a reason to be energized to call our state legislatures and ask the men and women that we elected at a state level to put their money where their mouth is and get constitutional and fight for us and fight to save the state and the country is this. An analysis of election night data from all states shows millions of votes either switched from President Trump to Biden or completely eliminated. How did they do it? with the Dominion system, the Dominion counting operation system. Now, if you're interested in that, you can ask some of your legislators in California in particular. They own some interest in that. I would like to see the news. I don't know if there's any. Well, Tucker would probably do it. I'd like to see someone at a news station ask everyone that represents us, hey, do you guys own any? You don't own that vote counting thing, do you? Any interest in that? Just curious. You're not on the board and the reason I bring this up, you may remember after 9/11, there were some Bush administration officials who had investments quite large in airport security units. The 360 thing that you stand in, you put your hands up, and you pray that it doesn't expose that you're not wearing underwear. And no one ever really cared about that. The reason people don't care, I think when you're in a state of confusion or fear or anxiety, you're thinking, oh, gosh, I don't even know if I don't know, they're just going to beat us down. I mean, look at how the news treats us. Look at how academia treats us. Look at it. It's just terrible. I don't even know if I want to get into it. You have to get into it. Donald Trump only has a handful of people in Washington that have his back. And the 72 million of us that voted for him. And the way to have his back is to get in touch with the states and say, look, I want an audit. I want to see receipts. I want to know why all these perfect linear transitional algorithms are moving these votes around when we're all human. How did that even happen? And then Mitt Romney explained it. Remember, he said, well, GOP voters just hate Trump, but they're still voting straight ticket. Senator, that's why you didn't get elected president, because that just wasn't a bright outlook. But there's another example. There's a really smart, successful guy who's made a money, and he's in denial that a computer algorithm was in place to lower Trump's votes in Republican precincts in a linear fashion and has already been exposed in 3 Michigan precincts in top counties. It's crazy. It's scary is what it is, because this is on top of all the dead people that vote. That's crazy. Your calls when we come back. Thanks for tuning in. Thank you to the EIB Network and the team for taking care of me when I'm here, and thank you to Mr. Limbaugh for the opportunity. I know this is a very challenging time, and it's an honor and a responsibility to sit in the chair of America's anchorman. And thank God you're here to keep the fight going. Thank God, because I have gotten so much or so many audio sound bites, and I want to take some more calls. I wanted to play some more because some of the news media is funny. Some is going to get you angry. A friend of mine said, I stopped watching news media. I just listened to a couple talk radio shows, including Rush, and that's it. And he goes, I'm so much calmer. And that's a good point. That's a good point. Because the news media is no longer packaged so you and I can make informed decisions. It's a story. It's a narrative. There's actors. There's actresses. There's fake crying. There's fake shock. I mean, you see people crying because a particular person was elected or not elected, but we have human trafficking and horrible things being done to children all across this country, also being ignored by large parts of the media, not all. There's all kinds of stuff going on in this country that we need to be informed of as American citizens, not just at the border, but in schools. We have some of the worst run schools. I mean, what's going on now with the shutdowns of schools throughout this country and the destruction of this entire educational learning curve of this generation, what they've done to people in middle schools, young people, and it's not the teachers. It's the administrators, it's the politicians, it's the unions. Most of the teachers I know want to go back to work. Their heart aches that they can't be in a room with their students. In many cases, it becomes like family. For good teachers, your students are like your family. You know that. And it's heartbreaking that, and I started this before the break, it's heartbreaking that exaggerating the danger of something that is dangerous, COVID's not good, COVID did take lives, but when you compare it, and that's something else the news media will not do. They will not allow us to see comparisons or trends or anything. The only thing we get from CNN is a narrative. Imagine if the time Don Lemon spent lecturing us on white privilege, if he just took a little time to maybe investigate voter fraud or 40,000 plus fraudulent ballots through Detroit. That's in the latest lawsuit. Governor Cuomo orders restaurants, bars to close at 10 p.m. amid the COVID uptick. He also limited 10 people per party. And think about that. Did you ever think the governor would tell you where to go, when to go, what to wear? Think about it. Schools closed. No, you can't go to work. Can't go to the movies. What about if I want to go on vacation with my family? Nope, we're not letting you go to that state. And then when you come back, we're going to quarantine you. But I'm healthy. It doesn't matter. I'm not a doctor, but I do play one as governor. That's another problem we have. Everybody looks to Bill Gates. He's a computer programmer and the richest man in the world. And a bunch of intellectuals give him all this credibility. You need to do some research on his background with vaccines and other issues. That's incredible. That's all you have to do. Well, Bill Gates told me to wear a mask. If Bill Gates said, hit yourself in the head with a hammer, would you do it? Well, I don't know. He's pretty smart. He's a billionaire. He must know something about hammers. Here's another big development today I want to share with you. 10 Republican attorneys general. I always get that wrong. 10 of them from the following states have put together an amicus brief. Missouri, Florida, Kentucky, Louisiana, Mississippi, South Carolina, South Dakota, Alabama, Arkansas, and Texas. They are urging the Supreme Court to get involved in the state of Pennsylvania. That's like a letter from the friend of a court. It's a petition by a person or group that's very interested because they're worried, these 10 states, these 10 attorneys general, they're worried that if this moves forward, if your state legislators sell you out and they certify a stolen election, that's the end of free and fair elections. That's the cornerstone of our republic. So what do you trust then? We already don't trust the leadership of many of our largest institutions. We already distrust the Speaker of the House, the head of the FBI, the former head of the CIA, maybe the current head of the FBI. I don't know. So what else are we going to lose trust in? This is what's so scary. The other thing, think about the mask and think about the shutdown. Most of the people that are proposing the shutdown, you may remember Dave called from Chicago, and he's concerned that another shutdown, it's going to totally wipe out what's left of certain areas of the country and the economy. And I think it really rattled the Democrats that President Trump, not only did he survive the Mueller coup and the Ukraine ridiculousness, that was really Joe's baby when you think about it, was it not? Joe did the quid pro quo. President Trump is the guy that said, listen to the call, there's nothing there. And there wasn't. And now they realized, they looked at his numbers and his polling. His approval rating is higher today. It's going up. It's going up. He had a higher approval rating during COVID when all the news media was blaming COVID on him. Why? Because most Americans know better. That's why. This is why you're seeing the panic. This is what the Democrats and the leftists have. This is what they've dreaded this. What if 70-plus million people see through our garbage? What if 70 million people look at the news and say, that guy's a clown. I don't care if he makes $9 million a year or not. Besides, his makeup's too heavy on his left side. What if that happens? Well, it has. Donald Trump, that's how it happened. Between Donald Trump in the Oval Office and Rush Limbaugh on the most listened to show in history, a lot of people are informed, and it's driving the left crazy. I mean, I don't know where this is going to go. I will say this. I do believe you and I have more control than we've ever had as American citizens in our lives. I think this is definitely one of those times. How often have we heard this? Well, you know what? Votes don't matter. Nobody cares. We all have a mopey friend, right? I have one friend that's determined the end of the world is happening every day. I'm like, dude, what's up? I don't know. It looks bad. What do you mean? I think Trump's going to win it. No way. Everybody's against us. No, we outnumber them. We outnumber them. Believe me, when you start calling state legislators and that's their only thing in life, that's their only gig, and they know if they don't get reelected, they may have to go out in the real world, the private sector, and earn. Oh, they might actually represent you. They might actually respond to you. This whole thing stops in less than a week. This whole kabuki theater stops the minute the states get involved and say, enough. There's too much fraud, and we're not moving forward until we've figured out what the heck is going on. We're not going to let you steal our election. Just because Chris Wallace doesn't like Donald Trump, and he keeps calling Joe Biden whatever he's calling him today. I'm Ken Matthews, and we'll be right back. 800-282-2882. My name's Ken. I'm in for America's Anchor Man. It is thrilling to be part of history with the rest of our friends, 72.3 million, that did not get conned, that think for themselves. They're not easily controlled. They love America with a passion, and many of them, if not all, are in this audience. History is being made. This is that time. You hear that? That's a big thing. Everybody says that, especially on the left. Every day is this and that. The other. This, in 2 months, there might be a mandatory mask edict. You might get arrested seen without a mask. Think about that. Well, that's not going to happen. It's happening in England. It's happening in France. And it's happening in Australia. And now I think there's new lockdowns in Italy. Well, why aren't I hearing that on CNN? Because they're busy lecturing you on your white privilege. Their job isn't to inform you. It's to get you feeling so bad about yourself. And by the way, if you happen to be one of the millions of black Americans that help Trump break all kinds of records, the biggest in 60 years, thank you for that. You know what CNN does to you. Oh, my God. Well, Joe Biden said it best. If you don't vote for Joe Biden, you're not black. I thought that would have lost him the election. But then I realized they're stealing it. So it really doesn't matter what Joe says. And Joe could talk about the most ridiculous policies in the world, but if the Dominion computer program is flipping votes, in 5 to 8 states, it doesn't even matter. He could say, I'm coming to everybody's house, I'm taking your car and your big screen, and nobody gets any water. He could still win with the computer. Let's go to Aaron, Hampton Falls, New Hampshire. You're on the Rush Limbaugh Show.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, Aaron.
Hello. So my call today is that people have to remember that Trump owned casinos years ago. So I was thinking about it this morning, and, you know, when you're at a casino, usually the house wins because those gaming machines are rigged to go towards the house to make the money. So in thinking that, I said he probably paid attention to this and applied the same logic to the voting machines that have been used to get these corrupt, both state level and federal level politicians in office. So I heard in 2018 he put in place to have a program done by the DHS, I think it's a CISA, which goes in and can find the voter fraud happening in real time and count exactly how many votes get switched as it's happening.
Well, let's hope that is what you said is accurate. There is the cyber security voting. I forget what it's called, but you're right. I think it's the acronym is CISA or something. And it is designed to expose voter fraud on the computer calculation level. One thing you said that what I would like to see more of. First of all, your analysis is brilliant. And I completely forgot. He knows how computers work. I mean, he knows
exactly.
how.
But he knows. Nobody pays attention to. It's like these little things. I mean, you went to military school.
Yeah, and exactly. I think that's why he worships the military in a great way. I mean, I think he's in awe of our military and our law enforcement, and he knows business. And people have downgraded him to the level the news media has, not America, that they don't even see it. And I think he's a few steps ahead. But what you said about real time, that is what we need. And we could do that. We could do a real time count on election night. You know, you have your deadline, and it's a real time count. And people could see the real count on TV. We have the technology. Just like you see points in a game or American Idol scores or whatever. The fact that it's all so disjointed, and you have all these private entities and outside entities controlling the most important aspect of our lives. Who will determine how our country is led? There's too many flaws in it. This is a broken system. President Trump is trying to fix it now, and we have to step up. We'll be right back. Thanks so much for tuning in. Thanks to Mr. Limbaugh and the EIB team and Allie and Mike and Craig. And thanks to the 72.4 million people who went out and voted with me for Donald J. Trump. I know you didn't do it just because I was doing it. I didn't mean to say that we were all in the same car. But I am just proud to be part of that group. We are a powerful, focused, engaged, positive force. Remember, we need to hop on the phones and get our state legislatures to engage in the checks and balances, that process that makes our country so great. And we cannot allow the states to certify an election or seat electors until we get the scam and the stealing settled. We have to take care of it. By the way, go to RushLimbaugh.com, order the app. It's very cool. Check that out. And remember this, and Rush says it all the time. This is no time to be mopey or bitter. We're still in the greatest nation on earth. God bless.
Hi, I'm CJ Pearson, and I'm everything the left hates. Young, black, and unapologetically conservative. Generation Z is tired of the BS, tired of the cancel culture, indoctrination, and tired of being told what to think. Join me each and every week as I take on the left, uncensored, unfiltered, and unafraid. Listen to CJ Pearson Uncensored every Thursday on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.